Right then, YouTube. So with the gyms reopening again, so here in England the gyms have been shut for coming up to a month now. With them reopening again on Wednesday, it's Sunday today, the day of rest. I've just been out and absolutely smashed a run. I don't run at all anymore, but that felt good. But anyway, with the gyms reopening again on Wednesday, I thought I'd make a video on how to build muscle, giving tips that I wish I knew when I first started training. I wish I knew these properly, how to implement them, because I've been obsessed with building muscle now for at least 10 years when I was training. Back when I was 15 in under 16s gym, I've been obsessed with building muscle, and I think if I knew these 5 tips I'm going to give, if I fully understood them back then, I could have made even more gains and been even further along in the journey. But now that I fully do understand it, these are tips that I'd like to share with people that are wanting to build muscle. This isn't really to do with strength training, anything like that. It's purely building muscle, something that I love doing, something that I think I specialise in. I wouldn't say I'm the hardest trainer ever, if I was completely honest. The people that train miles harder than me. But if you train smart and properly training muscle, you don't need to be the hardest trainer. Like, you don't need to be the one screaming in the gym, going absolutely all out every session. You can go in the gym and build muscle easily. You can do it without breaking a sweat, really, but you do want to push yourself as well. So these are the 5 tips that you need to know to grow muscle. And so number 1 is going to be hypertrophy. So hypertrophy is basically a fancy word for saying working your muscles properly. So I can't stress this enough. The amount of times I go into gyms and see people training and just working the joints instead of the muscle, they're not going to see any gains. The proportions are going to be all out of whack. They'll be doing shoulder things, working the joints, just not doing the movements properly. So hypertrophy is basically, take a bicep curl for example. When you contract it and then extend it, the eccentric part of the motion, you're tearing your muscle. So the tearing of the muscle is called hypertrophy, and then you rebuild the muscle and it grows bigger. So if you're not doing the exercise properly, you're not going to be working the muscle properly. So what I want you to do when you go in the gym, think about what you're doing. So when you're training, doing any resistance sort of training, think about what muscle you're working and really, really focus, get that mind-muscle connection on what muscle you're working. Really think about tearing that muscle and working it with each rep. You don't need to be going too heavy. You just need to be working the muscle and really, so mind-muscle connection, when you're doing the actual exercise, think about it and really focus on squeezing the muscle, getting the benefit out of each rep. You don't need to be going heavy. Just keep working the muscle, and trust me, like, lighten the weight, trust me, you'll feel so much better. You'll grow better muscle, and it's a good way to work out. So that is tip number 1. Right then, number 2. So this sort of goes in line with the first one, and this is drop the ego. So an example that I'd give for this is when I was 18 years old, I could squat 200 kilograms, but I wouldn't even call it a squat. I was going about that deep, not working the muscle properly, and I didn't see any leg growth really. And it was only when I really started going really deep, squatting, getting my ass to the grass, that I started to see growth. And there's no coincidence in this, because I wasn't working the muscle properly. I wasn't targeting the legs. I'd put 200 kilograms on and I just wasn't working the muscle properly. So drop the ego, lighten the weight, and really focus on squeezing each rep. If you're doing a compound exercise, there is room for strength training. I love going heavy on bench press, deadlift, things like that. Strength training, there's loads of benefits to it, but if you get stronger, you can move more weight, which in turn will build more muscle, but you don't need to be going overly heavy to work the muscle. So there's a balance between the two that you need when you're doing sort of resistance isolation exercises. Lighten the weight, squeeze each rep, make sure you're working the muscle. When you're doing compound exercises, there is room to go heavy. So it's getting a balance between the two, but drop the ego. You don't need to be going in the gym trying to outlift everyone. That's probably going to put you behind in muscle growth. So tip number 2 is drop the ego. Right then, so tip number 3. So this is going to be progressive overload. So progressive overload is really overlooked when it comes to training. People sort of don't use it when it's one of the easiest and most simple ways of getting bigger, stronger, fitter. Marathon runners use it when it comes to marathon training. They run further each time. So when it comes to strength training, what you want to do is track down, well, the best way I can suggest is track down what you're doing. So take a bench press, for example. If you can get 3 sets of 10 out at 60 kilogram 60 kilogram, You want to record that down, and then when you go in the next time, you want to get 60 kilogram out for 11 reps of 3 sets. So you're increasing your muscle to more stimulate each time you're going in. It's a great way to improve your muscle training, your strength training, but it's very overlooked. It's not always easy because you're going to have to push yourself each time. You're going to have to do more, but don't get discouraged if you can't do what you did last time. Sometimes your body's just not up to what you were doing last time. Fatigue, things like that. You've not ate right, you've not slept well, but recording your progress and trying to increase it each time is one of the most simple but most effective ways of training. It's not always going to be easy. Pushing yourself more each time can be quite hard, but it's a great way to stop yourself from plateauing, stop your training from getting tedious. A lot of people just go in the gym and just do whatever, but if you're recording what you're doing, you can know that next time I need to go in and do more. So this is a great way to build more muscle, get stronger and build more muscle. Tip number 4 is going to be setting targets, setting goals for your training. So anyone that knows me or has been watching any of my videos knows that I'm a big advocate of setting goals and targets, especially when it comes to training. You need to know why you're training, what you're training for, and have something to work towards. So I always feel I train better when I have a goal to work towards. Oh, well, I definitely do. So you want to be setting targets, setting weights that you want to hit, reps that you want to get out, how your body wants to look. I want to be at this point. I want to look like this at this date. I want to be able to do this at this date. This is going to keep you going when push you through sessions when you're not feeling too good, or get you to the gym when you don't want to go. So setting targets, again, very overlooked. Setting goals, write them down, put them everywhere so you can see them. You're creating the law of attraction. You're seeing it all the time. It's in your head. So you're working towards a target, a goal. You've got a reason to train. You're not just going in the gym and training for the sake of it. You're training towards something. So it's very overlooked, but a great way to improve your training. Tip number 5. So tip number 5 is going to be eat big to get big. This is sort of the secret to getting bigger, growing muscle. You need to be replenishing it with the right food. So counting your macros, you can do that, but basically, I'm going to simplify this. Your protein, carbs and fat. So protein is what rebuilds your muscles. So remember when I said in the first tip, you're tearing your muscles. Protein is what is going to rebuild them, and they're going to grow bigger, so they're going to look bigger. So that is what I'd recommend. You need to be eating at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So I weigh roughly about 185 pounds of pure muscle. No, I'm joking, I wish I did. Well, no, I don't, because I'd be dead. But yeah, so you need to be eating at least, if you're serious about building muscle, at least 1 gram of protein per pound of muscle. I weigh about 180 pounds, 185, 190, depending on where I'm at. But my goal is to get to 200 pounds. So at around 180 pounds, I eat about 220 grams of protein to grow. But everyone's different, but I recommend 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Carbs and fat, so these are going to be your energy sources, so you need energy to train. But if you're not eating enough of them, so your body uses carbs and fats as energy, but if you're not eating enough of them when you're training, when you're doing exercise or just going through daily habits, walking about, doing things around the office, whatever you're doing, your body's using carbs and fats as energy sources. If you're not getting enough in, it's going to be taking the energy source from your muscle, or your fat, so you're going to be losing weight, which is not what you're wanting. So you need to eat big to get big. So you can dirty bulk. I've done dirty bulks in the past. Probably not. I don't work best to them. I'm gonna this year of my bulking, growing muscle. I'm gonna be tracking my food, making sure I'm eating healthy, eating clean bulk. But you can do it however you want. But just make sure you're replenishing your muscles with the right nutrients, the right food, getting your protein in, getting the right carb sources in: rice, pasta, potatoes, oats, fruit, veg. Things like that, getting the right protein sources in. If you don't get enough protein in, easy ways, protein shakes. If you can get it in through your food, I recommend getting it in through your food. But yeah, eat big to get big. It's not a big secret, but it is a big secret. Like, if you are wanting to grow muscle, you need to be eating more. I could probably tell you're not eating enough if you wanted to grow muscle. So that is tip number 5. Hope this has helped you with understanding. Like I say, this isn't for advanced people. Most advanced people already know this, but this is if you're looking to get into muscle, if you're wanting to grow muscle, basically. These 5 tips will really help you. If you implement them into your training, they should help you out quite a lot.